Thank you for having me. I'm glad you guys are here. I'm Angela Soper. I'm a licensed clinical social worker. I have a private practice in the Heights. I'm also trained in collaborative divorce, so I've been working with divorced couples and individuals since 2008. But before that, I was always working with people who were struggling with divorce issues. So I'm really glad you're here. I think it's a great decision to come and figure out how to do this well. One of the things you're going to see on your handout, and for those of you who are online, you'll see on screen, is some questions I want you all to think about in gauging where you are in this process. I want you to know that divorce is considered one of the top 10 stressors that anybody can ever go through. And I'm going to talk about that in a little bit. But look at this rating list, and I'll tell you what I'm looking for. 5 is the truest, and 1 is the least true. And I want you to be clear that even though I'm a therapist, I don't think that everybody needs to be in therapy. And I also don't think that every child needs to be in therapy when their parents are going through divorce. So this list is not exhaustive, but it's certainly things that I ask people when they come to my office, just to get an idea of, do you need a little bit of support during this process? Because again, it's highly anxiety producing. And the way I'd look at it is if you have more answers in the 4 and 5 range than in the 1 and 2 range, and it's been every day for 2 weeks, you might want to consider talking to somebody. And that does not mean you're talking to somebody for years and years, or even months and months. Sometimes somebody comes to my office and they talk about what they're going through with the divorce. And we might talk for 1 or 2 or 3 sessions, and you know, it sounds like you're doing really well. It sounds like you're going through some normal things that people process in a divorce, and I don't think you need to see me anymore. So I don't want you to be overly concerned if you're in the 4 to 5 range in most of the questions, but it's something for you to look at. As I said, divorce is considered extremely stressful. It's one of the top stressors you can go through in a lifetime. And what they say is that the death of a spouse is more stressful than a divorce. And in some ways, I really disagree with that, and I'll tell you why. With death, there's finality. You may have some unfinished business, but there's nothing that you can clean up and you can move past that. And usually you get support from others who, they're not making judgments, somebody died. Often, during a divorce, there are a lot of financial issues and concerns that people have. And so that adds another layer of stress. With divorce also, I think that people can feel like there's a sense of failure. And even when you know, I've done everything I can to make this marriage work, I did this and I did this, and you can talk yourself through everything that you've done, I've yet to talk to somebody who doesn't say, this was one of my greatest failures. And so that's something that I think people can work through. I know people can work through it. And they can get to the other side of it. But usually people don't feel like they failed when somebody died. You might have some regrets, but you don't feel like you failed. And then the other thing is again, with divorce, and not with death. With death, people walk alongside you. Sometimes with divorce, there's judgment and you lose friendships. And so just like that, sometimes your whole social group has changed. So it can be very, very difficult. So what do you do? The first thing that I want to talk about is boundaries. There are many kinds of boundaries. There's the physical boundary that we all have. It's our body. We can say, yes, I want you to hug me. No, I'm not okay with this. But the 2 psychological boundaries I want to teach you about are called containing boundaries and protective boundaries. And I'm going to explain the containing because it's the easiest. Although when you're going through a divorce, it can be very difficult to have a containing boundary, which is understandable. But a containing boundary, I usually do this. The containing boundary protects the world from you, right? So the best way to think about a containing boundary is you're driving down the freeway and you accidentally cross into somebody's lane and you wave and they flip you off. The person who flipped you off has lost their containing boundary. They're thinking about them. They're not thinking about you. They don't know you're going through a divorce. They don't know that you're stressed and you were thinking about, oh my goodness, I'm late to an appointment. All they're thinking about is you got in my lane and I'm ticked off, and so off you go. The containing boundary keeps you moderate. And it's important because all of us have this whoosh, W-H-O-O-S-H, whoosh, where we get mad. I am Brazilian and Irish, so think about that combination. And I used to light up like a Christmas tree. You tick me off and I am ready to go. I'm ready to go to war. I still have the whoosh. I just have a good containing boundary that I've really worked on for a very long time so that I don't barf all over people when I'm mad, to say it crudely. Your protective boundary is like a force field around you. We all know that protective boundary. If I get too close to you, pre-COVID, if I walked up to one of your tables and got in your face, what do? Natural reaction is to kind of do this, right? That's a protective boundary. You're in my space. But a protective boundary also is allowing you to stay connected and protected. It is not a wall. You're not walling off, but it's a protective boundary. So people might say to you, for example, and this is how I do the protective boundary. I'm protected and connected. Somebody says something to me and I'm going to take in the truth and I'm going to put the boundary right back up. Got it? So it looks like this all day long. The example that I give my clients is if you say to me, oh my goodness, you're the worst therapist I've ever met in my life. My boundary's going to stay here. I'll be curious. I want to know why, but it doesn't level me. It's just not true, so I'm going to let it, boink off. If they say, and you talk too much, there's some truth to that, so I'm going to take that in, put it right back out. The reason why I start this when I talk to people who are going through a divorce is because the feeling I think a lot of people go through is this barrage of, let me give you my advice. Let me tell you what I think. Let me tell you why I think you were stupid for going through a divorce. Let me tell you why I think he left you. Let me tell you why I think you should have left him 5 years ago. It's overwhelming. And so having a good protective boundary allows you to say, thank you for loving me and feeling safe enough to share your opinion with me, but right now I'm not ready to hear it. It's connected and protected and it's contained. Shut up, I don't want to hear anything from you is a loss of a containing boundary, right? But I want people to be able to say, I'm not ready to hear that. I'm overwhelmed. I'm tired. And so that's your protective boundary. Why is a boundary important? It's important because it has everything to do with self-care. And let me say for those of you who are parents, you need boundaries with your children, not just to give them boundaries, but you also need boundaries to protect yourself from them. Because sometimes kids, why are you leaving daddy? Why are you leaving mommy? They're mad, and there are things that you need to do to protect yourself. And so what do they say to people on an airplane? What's the first thing you do if the oxygen goes down? Right. You put the mask on yourself. Why? Because if you pass out, you can't help your child. So what I want you to think about as you go through this process is taking care of yourself is actually the most important thing you can do, because if you do that, then you can take care of your child. If you don't take care of you, you can't take care of your child. You're tired, you're depressed, you're overwhelmed. And so taking care of yourself is the most important thing you can do. And so what does that look like? The first thing it looks like is learning to say no. So we're going to practice this out loud. From now on, I don't want you wearing masks. Say no to me. No. With some conviction, you guys. That's kind of... No. No. Thank you. No. So the first thing you're going to learn to do is say no. Women have been taught to be much more demure, to make explanations, right? Has anybody ever been told that you can't just say no if somebody asks you out? You need to say why. Oh, I'm so sorry. No, thank you. I have plans on Saturday night. You don't, but you've been taught to be demure and kind. We don't owe people an explanation. If we want to give an explanation, we can. But it's okay for somebody to say, hey, do you think you can take my kids to soccer practice tonight? I'm busy, or I can't do it tonight. Can you do that? And it's okay to say, no, I'm sorry, I can't. So this is a little bit of pushback I get from people. Well, I don't want to be selfish. I don't want you to be selfish. Boundaries is not about being selfish. It's about self-care. So for me, what I've learned, and I want you to think about this for yourselves, and I think it's true for most people, if I feel resentment, it's because I've let go of my boundaries. I've said yes when I mean no. So it looks like this. Could you take my child to soccer practice? Sure. Oh my gosh, I'm running late. I had an appointment. I'm not going to be able to go to the grocery store. Now I'm going to have to pick up takeout. And then I have my kid that I've got to take to basketball. And I'm mad, but sure, I can do that for you. Thank you so much. Right? So it's that resentment. And so I want us to learn to be able to say no. It's also saying no to our children. I would love to be able to buy you those shoes today, but you don't need them. And so we're not going to get them right now. Those are boundaries and saying no. Also, again, it takes things off your plate. How many of you know the feeling of looking at your week and going, I don't even know how I'm going to get through it? Anybody? Some of you? All of us. So I want you to think about that. Why do we do that? I think often it's because we're saying yes when we mean no. The other thing I would say when it comes to self-care and keeping your boundaries is everybody has opinions, right? And opinions are good. But one of the things that I've heard over and over and over again is try not to listen to all of your friends' unsolicited advice about their divorce or their sister's divorce or their parents' divorce. It's your divorce. It's nobody else's. You are unique. Your story is unique, your family is unique, and so somebody might have a good idea, but it doesn't fit on you. So again, this is when you can put the boundary up and say, thank you so much for caring about me. Again, I have so much that I'm trying to parse out. I'll keep that in mind. And then let it go. One of the things that all of my clients hear me say over and over again is listen to your gut. That gut feeling that tells you something's off, something's wrong. I don't know about you, but there have been times where I've met somebody and it's like, I've had that happen in different situations, even in a supermarket where somebody's talking to me and I'm thinking, ooh, something feels wrong. So one of the things I encourage people to do also is when people are going through a divorce, under any stress, actually all the time, listen to that gut. I believe, and there's no scientific evidence for this, but I think all of us have this innate sense of a feeling that something's wrong. I think women tend to have it more, and I think it's because, I know this is not politically correct, but we are biologically built for children, and we tend to be more nurturing in general. I know there are outliers. I'm not trying to say anything negative about men. But I think women tend to have really strong gut feelings. And what happens when we lose our boundaries? We don't listen to them. That's why boundaries are so important. Because I can't tell you how many times people have said something went off on a date. And I'll say, did you have any, red flags or gut feelings about that person? Oh, no. And then later on, well, sort of. So I want you to listen to that gut feeling. Okay, the next thing I want you to think about when it comes to practicing self-care is don't compare yourself to other moms. We live in social media where everybody looks great, everybody's vacations are the best. right? Oh, I wish I had that life. I wish I had that. I don't know if you feel that way. I do sometimes. And so, again, you're unique. And I think most parents, I really believe this, 31 years of doing what I do, I think most parents do the very best they can. And so I do think women can be very, very judgmental. People can be very, very judgmental. But we get a lot of, oh, you're a stay-at-home mom? Or, oh, you're a working mom. So again, practicing good boundaries, staying where you are, honoring who you are and who you're meant to be means I'm not going to compare myself. Good for you for choosing what you got to choose, if you got to choose. And good for you for making the best out of something if you didn't get to choose, but you're doing something anyway. So comparison really doesn't help. What I've noticed is, this is a true story. I had somebody come into my office one day who was an adult and said, I'm really upset. I only got 100 likes about something that I posted. Kids are getting more depressed over social media, and I think we are more susceptible when we're vulnerable to feeling judgment. Comparison doesn't help. The next thing is I want you to learn how to practice healthy anger. Another thing that I hear a lot is women and sometimes people of color can be judged when they are angry, that we are the B word instead of just angry and assertive. Healthy anger is being able to own what you feel. It's being able to stay moderate. It's being able to stay clear and not back down. I'm not talking about an inability to scan for the truth. That's a wall. A wall is talk to the hand, I have nothing to say to you. It's like your back's turned to you or to others. But healthy anger is being able to say, no, that is not right. Or I'm not okay with what happened, and I'm not going to back down so you can feel better about it. So another thing about boundaries is you are not responsible for how others feel about your delivery or your anger, or about what you say or your anger, unless you are crossing a line. So if I am moderate and I'm expressing anger, talking about what I'm experiencing and what I'm feeling and not who you are, what you do, but if I'm doing that, it is not my job to make sure the other person's feelings are not hurt. I'm going to say that again in a different way. If I am respectful and kind and clear, even when I'm mad, and somebody walks away and their feelings are hurt, it is not my problem. They are in charge of dealing with their own reaction. And their job is to put a good boundary up too. Scan for the truth. Wow, Angela was really mad. What did she say that was true? Nothing. Okay, I don't need to be mad back. And if my feelings are hurt, I can just acknowledge it. My feelings are hurt. I didn't like that interaction, but I can move on. So your job is the presentation, not what happens afterwards. Trust friends who tell you things that you don't want to hear, if they're telling you the truth. I'll give you an example. I was in graduate school, and I complained and complained and complained and complained to my sister about how hard it was. I had to have a job, blah, blah, blah. And one day she said to me, after listening to this for a long time, "Well, quit." I said, "I don't want to quit." And she said, "Then shut up. I don't want to hear about it anymore." I've never forgotten that. It was such a good lesson for me. And she said it. Now, you have to know my sister. She can be brutally honest like me. But she said it exactly when I needed to hear it. And I trusted her advice. She was right. I needed to move on. It was hard. Okay, so what? It was my choice. Move on. And it was a life-changing moment for me. And the friends who tell me the truth, even when it's hard, are really good friends. There's a quotation by C.S. Lewis, and this is the quotation. "If you seek comfort at the expense of truth, you will find neither." If you speak truth at the expense of comfort, you may get both. I love that. I think that's a great quotation. Rest. Super important. I talk to people about sleep and rest in my office, oh gosh, all the time. I'm always assessing for how are you sleeping? Are you waking up? What are you doing before you go to sleep? Screens are the worst things in the world. What I tell people is if you're not sleeping well, I want you to turn off TV and screens 2 hours before you go to bed. If you can't do that, then buy on Amazon. I just got those cheap blue light glasses. They're cheap. I got 2 pair for like $16.99. And wear those for a couple of hours before you go to bed. But what are you watching before you go to sleep? The news? Politics? Scary 48-hour stuff? What I encourage people to do is really set a time to be still and to be quiet and rest. So it's reading a book, it's listening to quiet music, it's being silent, it's being still, it's drinking a cup of tea, it's reading a story with your children. It's something that allows you to rest. And we are a society that values go, 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 right? Wow, I only got 5 hours of sleep. You're the bomb, right? Instead of, I got 8 hours of sleep and I feel so good. I'm so grateful that I took a nap. Or I decided not to do anything on Saturday. I took it as a day off. Exercise. I don't like it. But, I've had my dogs now, they're 2 rescues for 3 years, and they force me to walk every day, a couple miles every day. And I've noticed since I've had them that my stress level has really gone down. And every day, I'm walking my dogs. I'm not listening to anything, by the way. This is another helpful hint. Take the earbuds out. I don't care if it's a podcast. I don't care if it's inspirational. Just be quiet. Look at the foliage. Look at the other dogs in the neighborhood. Look at, whatever in your neighborhood. But walk. Exercise. It's important. The one thing we talk about when it comes to depression and anxiety, the first thing I ask people to do is 30 minutes every day. Get your heart rate up every day. I don't want to do it. I know. But it's so important in self-care. I really encourage you every day walk and know yourself. You might be somebody who says, if I have to get up early to walk, it's not going to happen. It doesn't matter when you do it. You just need to do it. Drinking, if you don't drink, now's not the time to start. I want to be really clear about that. It really is not the time to do it under stress. If you do drink, I really encourage moderation. There's a lot of thought about this, so don't take this to the bank. I'd encourage you to talk to your physician about this. Moderate drinking is considered 1 glass a day for a woman, 2 glasses for a man. I think that's a lot, honestly. If you're drinking every day, that seems like a lot to me. But what I'd encourage you to do is really hold off. By the way, moderate drinking is not, I don't drink through the week and then I have 7 on Saturday. That's still excessive drinking. So drink moderately. Next, conventional wisdom says don't make big decisions when you're going through something like a divorce or something difficult. What's hard is, I know, you guys have to make major decisions. Selling a house, where the kids might be living. There's so many decisions you have to make. What I would encourage you to do is there are some decisions you don't have to make. And if you can wait, I would encourage you to wait. Just take a breath. Wait for the dust to settle. There's a great image. I did a silent retreat. I love those things. And somebody talked about you get a bottle with sand and pebbles in it, and you shake it up and it gets all, cloudy and dirty and gross. But if you lay it down to rest and let it settle, the water's really clear and the sand and the pebbles are at the bottom. And that's what we need when life is all difficult. So we need some time to settle. And so if you don't have to make big decisions post-divorce, I'd encourage you not to. Express your emotions. No one has died of crying. Nobody. And in the history of the world, nobody has ever not stopped crying. And I have so many people apologize for crying. I can't tell you how many times I'd be rich if I charged every time clients would say to me, you know, I told myself I wasn't going to cry, as they grab a tissue. There's no reward for not crying. And there's a reason that we have tear ducts. It's so healthy to grieve. It's so healthy to grieve. And divorce, even if you initiate it, is loss. It's a grief. I can't tell you how many times people have said, I can't wait for this divorce. I initiated it. I am so done. And then the day everything is finalized, they are sobbing like babies. And good for them. Crying is not a sign of weakness. It is grief. It's appropriate. And then lastly, grieve. We used to say you should be over grief in a year. That was conventional wisdom. Really? A 30-year marriage in a year, be done? Says who? Grief is also very individual. The way I grieve is going to look different from the way you grieve. And so it's going to take however long it takes. But allow yourself to do it, because what I do know is eventually it'll catch up and bite you in the rear. Okay, same thing with your children. I would look and see if they're ranging in the 4s and 5s. So how you take care of your children, other than kind of assessing what is going on with this, is allow your kids to feel. Your children are feeling this. And what you need to do is let them feel it. And it's okay for you to say, oh, sweetie, I'm sad too. But you don't have to take care of me. My job is to take care of you. I love you. I'm going to do everything I can to help you. You don't have to take care of me, but man, it's okay for you to be sad. It's okay for you to be mad. It's okay. Feelings are feelings. They are not facts. Remind them over and over again that it's nothing that they did to cause the divorce. I have to tell you, I had a 25-year-old man in my office, and I asked, do you ever feel like it was your fault? And he goes, oh, no. Well, sort of. I was kind of a difficult kid. And I said, it was not your fault. These are adults who went through this process that had nothing to do with you. And he teared up. You got to remind your kids it's not their fault. Deal with fears. It may be cute that they want to sell things to help you out, but that means they're afraid. Children are often afraid what's going to happen to them. Am I going to be able to eat? Where am I going to live? Are you going to divorce me too? They need a lot of reassurance. Pay attention to what's happening outside of the home. That's more of a bellwether. They're going to act out in front of you. You're safe. But if you have a kid who's acting out in school or at other people's houses where they haven't before, then I'm beginning to worry. Don't put them in the middle. They're not the speaker. Tell your dad this, tell your mom that. It is so stressful for little ones. And they don't need to be the grown-up. I've had people say, well, I don't want to lie to my child. Lie to your children, y'all. Great advice. Lie to your kids. Did you guys divorce because so-and-so had an affair? Honey, where did you hear that? They don't need the burden. They don't need the burden. They're little people. We got to let them stay little people. And they also need to, all of us get to a point where we understand that our parents aren't perfect. Let them get to that point themselves. Try to be positive about the other parent. Remember, they're half of them, and they feel it. Play. Let kids play, and find trusted others that they can speak with. I have run out of time. It's been such a pleasure. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.